Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. The Radicalism of the American Revolution by Gordon S. Wood examines the revolutionary era not only as a political break with Britain, but as a deep social transformation that reshaped everyday life in the new United States. Wood, a leading historian of early America, argues that the revolution changed far more than constitutions and allegiances. It altered long-standing assumptions about hierarchy, deference, and who was entitled to public voice and respect. Moving from the colonial world of patronage and inherited status to an increasingly egalitarian, market-oriented society, Americans redefined what it meant to be independent, virtuous, and free. The book traces how Republican ideals spread through institutions, manners, and expectations, ultimately creating a culture that prized ordinary people and their capacity for self-rule. Without treating the revolution as a simple story of heroes and battles, Wood highlights the tensions, contradictions, and unintended consequences that made the period genuinely radical. It is a wide-angle interpretation that connects ideas to social realities. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, from Monarchy and Empire to Republican Legitimacy, a central theme is the shift in the basis of political authority. In the colonial world, legitimacy was tied to monarchy, imperial connection, and a social order that expected dependence on superiors. Wood explains how resistance to British policies expanded into a challenge to older assumptions about sovereignty itself, pushing Americans to justify power in terms of the people rather than the crown. This required new political languages and institutions, written constitutions, broader notions of representation, and a public sphere in which argument and persuasion mattered more than inherited rank. The book emphasizes that republicanism was not merely a set of slogans. It was a demanding moral and civic framework that claimed public officials should serve the common good and that citizens should be vigilant against corruption. Wood also shows that this change was uneven and contested. Many Americans remained attached to deference and stability, while others embraced more democratic claims. The result was a redefinition of citizenship and public legitimacy that made politics feel closer to ordinary life, even as it created new anxieties about faction, popular passion, and the maintenance of virtue. Secondly, the collapse of deference and the remaking of social hierarchy. Wood argues that the revolution attacked more than British rule. It undermined the everyday practices that kept colonial society hierarchical. In the 18th century, status was performed through manners, titles, patron-client relationships, and expectations of obedience. The revolutionary crisis encouraged Americans to question why some people deserved automatic respect and others were expected to depend. As political equality became a more powerful ideal, social interactions began to change. Elites could not rely as easily on old signals of authority, and ordinary people gained confidence in judging leaders and asserting their own worth. Wood explores how this shift altered communities, local politics, and personal identity. The decline of deference did not produce instant equality, and inequalities of wealth and power remained. Yet the cultural direction was significant. People increasingly valued independence, plainness, and merit, and they became more skeptical of aristocratic pretension. This transformation helps explain why the American Revolution can be described as radical, even without the kind of violent class upheaval seen elsewhere. The radicalism lay in changing assumptions about who mattered and how respect was earned in a society that had once treated hierarchy as natural. Thirdly, commerce, capitalism, and the rise of a new democratic society. Another important topic is the economic and cultural shift toward a more commercial, market-oriented nation. Wood links revolutionary ideals to the growth of opportunity and mobility, showing how independence and equality could align with expanding commerce. As older patronage networks weakened, more Americans pursued advancement through work, trade, and professional skill, rather than through dependency on powerful families. This helped create a new kind of society that celebrated ordinary ambition and treated economic participation as compatible with Republican citizenship. At the same time, Wood highlights the tension between classical Republican fears of luxury and corruption and the practical realities of a growing capitalist economy. Americans debated whether commerce would erode virtue or whether it could discipline behavior through contracts, credit, and mutual interest. The book suggests that the revolution accelerated a transition from a society organized around personal relationships and fixed ranks to one increasingly shaped by impersonal exchange and individual choice. This change broadened the meaning of independence from a political condition to a personal and economic one. It also contributed to a more inclusive public culture, even as it introduced new forms of inequality tied to markets rather than lineage. Fourthly, gender, family, and the limits of revolutionary equality. Wood addresses how revolutionary change reached into households and gender expectations while also revealing clear limits to equality. revolutionary rhetoric emphasized liberty, consent, and the capacity of ordinary people, but women remained excluded from formal political rights. Still, the cultural shift away from hierarchy affected family life and the social standing of women in significant ways. Wood explores how the ideology of Republican citizenship encouraged new attention to education, virtue, and the moral influence of family, giving women an expanded role as shapers of civic character even without direct political power. The movement from patriarchal dependency toward ideals of companionate marriage and individual choice also reflected broader changes in authority and deference. Yet the book does not present this as uncomplicated progress. The same society that praised equality could rationalize continued legal and political constraints on women, and it could treat domestic influence as a substitute for rights. By examining these dynamics, Wood shows how the revolution simultaneously opened possibilities and reinforced boundaries. The topic underscores a major lesson of the book. The revolution's radicalism was real, but it unfolded through culture, institutions, and social expectations, producing gains in some areas while leaving other hierarchies largely intact. Lastly, slavery, race, and the contradictions of a revolutionary republic. The revolution posed profound questions about slavery and race, and Wood treats these issues as central to understanding both the power and the contradictions of revolutionary ideals. A politics built on natural rights and equality forced Americans to confront the moral and political legitimacy of human bondage. The era witnessed anti-slavery arguments, gradual emancipation in some northern states, and new public debates about the compatibility of slavery with republicanism. At the same time, the persistence and expansion of slavery in other regions revealed how economic interests, racial ideologies, and social fears could override universal principles. Wood's analysis highlights the revolution as a catalyst that made slavery harder to justify in the language of public virtue, even when it was not dismantled. This tension shaped American identity. The nation could see itself as a champion of liberty while sustaining unfree labor and racial exclusion. The topic also shows how radical social change can coexist with entrenched oppression, and how revolutionary rhetoric can be both transformative and limited by the structures of the time. By placing slavery within the broader remaking of society, Wood clarifies why the revolution remains morally complex and historically consequential. In conclusion, this book suits readers who want a serious, interpretive history of the American Revolution, including students, general history enthusiasts, and anyone curious about how political events reshape social life. It is especially valuable for readers who have learned the revolution mainly as a military conflict or a story of founding documents and want to understand how ordinary relationships, expectations, and identities changed. The benefit is practical as well as intellectual. Wood trains you to see how ideas about equality, authority, and independence operate in daily culture, not just in government. That perspective helps readers think more clearly about modern debates over democracy, status, and civic trust, because it shows how quickly social assumptions can shift once legitimacy is contested. Compared with many revolution books that focus narrowly on leaders, campaigns, or constitutional design, this one stands out for connecting ideology to lived experience and for explaining why the changes were genuinely radical without claiming they were uniformly liberating. It offers a big, coherent argument grounded in historical scholarship, making it worth buying for readers who want more than a timeline and who appreciate a thesis-driven account that deepens understanding of American society's origins. If you would like to support Gordon S. Lash Protection Wood, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.